like, oh, is it all meaningless? I don't know. It's hard to find a why today. And that's why I really like to go into the question of how, and how becomes, this beautiful practice type of philosophy of like, yo, are you just like doing the rituals of your practice and taking a lot of pride and just like really being aware of what you're doing? And, they say how you do one thing is how you do everything. So, trying to just take pride in my practice every day, and good things come from it. Yeah, I'm doing really well. It's a nice day over here. Actually, it's raining, but internally it's a nice day. So
It's
things are
always,
good. How about you?
people forget it's always it's always sunny. It's just there's clouds and some rain
Yeah,
covering it, right?
exactly. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was having a conversation with my buddy last night, and he was telling me about just someone on a podcast he was listening to was saying how, like, for his son, he's trying to reframe what we call like bad weather, because really inherently there's nothing bad about rain, or like these things that we consider to be negative. They can be actually quite like fun things, right? So
Yeah,
it's an interesting conversation about like reframing our
it
language.
is. Yeah, Shakespeare's no good or bad thinking makes it so.
Exactly.
Which is just a
Yes.
bomb, isn't it? Because then you just start questioning
Yeah.
everything. You're like, I was thinking this
Right.
morning when I got up for sunrise, actually, not a regular thing this year because it has, not been there. It's been there, but I can visually see it. I haven't got up for sunrise
Right.
in about 6 months. But we went down to the beach today. One of our friends actually told us, new moon, let's go. Weather's looking good. We'll get a fire going and we'll just get in the North Sea, which, if you didn't know, is bitterly cold.
Oh, I bet.
Have you ever been to England?
How was that? Um, I have not, and I had plans to go in April, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, COVID hit right before we were about to take off, and I was really bummed. But actually, I'm sorry. I've been to London one time before for a week, and I really loved it. I really loved it. But we were looking forward to coming back and spending like a month in England, and then
Yeah.
like a month in France and stuff. So hopefully that it continues. It'll happen sometime
Yeah,
this
it's
year,
going
hopefully.
nowhere. I mean, culture's going places, but in
Right.
crazy directions. But continent's still here. So yeah,
Yeah.
I was getting in the sea today, and it's very cold. But we had a fire going. It's probably the first time I've gone into the sea. Like it's a daily practice, I'd say. Most days, it's non-negotiable. But we had a fire going outside. The first time I've done that in the morning, and it was just phenomenal because my body warmed up just through the
Mm,
harnessing of the fire, and we
yeah.
were just like, I mean, we were hugging the fire like closely. Don't know if I'm getting
Yeah.
burnt or not, like that kind
Right.
of loss of feeling. But yeah, it was
Dude, that sounds amazing, man. That sounds really good. So when you hop in the ocean, are you swimming, or are you just kind of like taking it more of like a cold plunge style, or?
this is a dip. It's
Yep.
trying not to get overwhelmed and
Yeah.
over excited and loss of breath. You're just concentrating on your breath. Yeah, I don't go in with
Right.
any wetsuit, minimal clothing, and yeah, it's all about the cold. I say to people, it kind of froze them, but I say I wouldn't go in if it was hot. If it was warm, I probably wouldn't go in as much. And then they kind of think,
Mm-hmm.
well, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was at my buddy's house a couple weekends ago. He had rented an Airbnb, like a nice pad with a pool, and people were gonna go in the pool, and I was like, I'm okay. But then when they told me it was really, really cold, I was like, oh, okay, now I want to get in, like now I want to do this cold exposure thing. And it's way more enjoyable.
Yeah. And then the people think, oh, you're that guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Now I know you a bit. I know you a bit better now,
Yeah. See the soul, straight to the soul there.
Yeah. But yeah, no, thinking about kind of reconditioning, I suppose, where this started, I often think about sun rising and sun setting when that's not actually, the sun doesn't rise. We rotate. And I wonder if you could reframe that for a kid and see where that goes. I guess all these things we have like language for, which aren't actually the truth,
Yeah, right. Yeah, so many things. It's like we need the language to communicate, but it's so limited to our experience. So that's become really fascinating to me in the last year or so. It's just like, how are we being wired by our language?
Yeah, limited as well.
Limited, yeah.
I mean, we've had language for probably about, I heard something the other day, about 100,000 years. Does that sound about right? Who knows?
I'll go with you on that.
Everyone's agreeing because no one knows.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that they actually don't know that when it did come about, or why, even what the trajectory was, or what kind of caused it. I assume I was having the conversation. There was someone on BBC radio talking about language and using words and the etymologies and stuff. And she started to just kind of planted an idea of like, I was like, well, how old is language? I kind of looked into that, and then looked into why did we develop language? We obviously survived, similar species for how many millions of years without it. Like, was that a big catalyst in our evolution? And then like, it was obviously for an advantage, it was so we could communicate and take down animals perhaps, and that communication with each other, which was an elevation of consciousness, I guess, because it's, you're raising your game and your kind of intellect and consciously thinking and plotting and planning, and humans above all animals plan, don't we? So it's fascinating.
And that is like the unique thing to us, right? Is we can plan for the future, we can strategize, and then I imagine when we were doing that solo, and then you bring that into like a group environment where you can share ideas and stuff, and then that's when like humanity took off, essentially.
Man. And here we are.
Here we are having a conversation on the internet.
Amazing. So let me, I didn't know how this was going to go, and I still don't, so I'm excited to find out what avenues we go down. But let's paint the picture, paint the scene, because I'll first just perhaps, I'll let you do a little introduction, but I'll explain where I first heard about you. Obviously it was YouTube, and tapping into some of your stuff, listening, following along. Your videos above anyone else's have changed my mindset, my physical game, like above many others. And you've obviously crafted quite a unique art, I think, in that space. Like it is self-development through movement, and it feels like you've done a good job. I think it really resonated with me, a lot of your stuff, a lot of your content. And I thought we could perhaps start after you do a little introduction of yourself, because I almost like to start podcasts with like, what does this mean in terms of evolution and humans, and what are we born to do, how are we born to move? And that's what I connected with mostly, and then came, and probably does similar for everyone else. It's kind of, you go into things thinking, purely physical, purely measurement, I'm going to measure the results, but then you start to, and you have an amazing kind of approach, I guess. It's an approach to really, subtly tap into people's mindsets and thinking about the why statement. And I think that defines you more than anything. I wouldn't define you, but if I had to, like tapping into the why of like, why are you doing this? Okay, well, why are you doing it for that? And
Mm.
that approach and subtly just kind of dripping that in is phenomenal. I think that's a game changer for so many people. But yeah, so in light of evolution and like primal natural movement ways, and yeah, just give yourself a little intro. Give you the mic.
Well, thanks, Chris. That's yeah, that feels really good to to hear that it's affected you
Mhm.
in a positive way. Um, so yeah, it's I teach movement online, and it's a blend of different approaches and styles that I've trained over the year that have helped me, and it's predominantly body weight based and using your body in more natural ways to play with or slash regain any mobility or just movement coordination capabilities that you've lost along the way from living these modern day lives that we do. Um, and yeah, the philosophy behind it has always been to improve the quality of movement in order to improve the quality of your life, and um, over the years, like you just see how these two things they're not two things, they're one thing, like your mind, your body is one thing, your movement and your life is one thing as well, right? We tend to compartmentalize things, but it all flows together. So yeah, that would be an intro for me, I guess. Was there another question that you wanted me to
Yeah, nice.
go
I
on?
guess the next thing is, and let's go physical first, because I'm sure we will tap into mental and
Yeah.
emotional and all that and spiritual. But first, let's the thing we can measure, it's physical. And I guess the why did you and how did you, you know, did you discover what were your parents? Did they play a part in kind of like moving in more primal and natural ways? Because I mean, we look around in these
Mm.
Western cultures and we're we're not moving in ways that we did a couple of hundred or even 1,000 years ago. So, well, a
Yeah.
bit longer actually, but that is a very small amount of time in the history of our anatomical body.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, the origins were actually for me. I imagine how a lot of people come into like really um, getting obsessed with something and almost needing something was that I was the opposite. I played a lot of team sports growing up, so I was physical, but it was very much more based on just like these imaginary games that didn't really fully have me connecting with my body. It was always just like very outcome based, and essentially like after playing some basketball in university and getting done there, like my body was just a wreck. I was just super stiff in some areas, like too loose in some areas, and then I tried to become like a bodybuilder or a power lifter on top of that already very shaky structure, and that just led to like, man, knee pain, back pain, everything. And I ended up having like a big injury. I tore my meniscus, and that just like stripped my identity. Like no meniscus, I can't squat anymore. I can't like deadlift heavy weights. Like who am I now, essentially? So I had to find some different things to do, and I ended up like getting into some gymnastics, body weight, strength training. Stuff that I'd never done before, and that I found that, oh wow, like I'm so weak at this, bad at this, but really it's just giving me so much potential that I can enhance in my body. And from there, it was just like snowball effect. I started doing some capoeira. I started getting into more of like the teachers online teaching animal type movement, locomotion type movement. I started to dance, just like all these different ways of using my body. And that's been my journey for the last about like 7 or 8 years, is just following that naturalistic way of moving, and it's just given so much to me, way past the physical. Like it's just let me connect deeper to the earth and to myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing. I mean, for me, when gyms just kind of really phased out. I think I just lacked soul, and I have this kind of, it's you know, the stereotypical Virgin Active here in England, or you've got a lot of kind of people they're concentrating, aren't they? They're really like focused, and it's very serious. There's an energy, and it's like, you kind of, and there's a lot of testosterone around the weight section, and you gotta you gotta careful of kind of what you say or how you kind of look at someone, and that just for me, I was like, whoa, all right. That's kind of and I got into yoga essentially after being in gyms, those generic gyms since I was 16, and that I got into yoga when I was traveling, and that for me was just connecting all the dots that I needed to kind of connect, and similar to what you were saying about getting into your body, and for me it was about getting out of my head and into my body, but then working in and working out at the same time, which is it's very similar to a lot of these practices. But the natural movement thing, I've been getting, obviously, I mean, coincided with the lockdown, getting out into at the outside and having workouts there, and your videos just helped kind of. It almost like I mean, we're a very social species, but when you see someone doing something, I think it was one of your videos that you, perhaps your girlfriend, there was a girl there, and you just pulled over on the way to somewhere, and you were in this stretch of just grass, and you were having the most fun, but clearly like, focused also. And there's a balance of a bit of that. And you're just playing, and you're rolling around, and you're doing pulls and push pulls, and you're just working out and squatting and like full range of motion and mobility and flexibility. And I'm just like, yes. And the kind of penny dropped, and I was like, I'd say parkour above any other kind of activity gets people out of their comfort zones, and it stops that mind that wants to be accepted or cares the way they look. And I think, going off on a bit of a tangent, but parkour for me is like, I idolize those people, because I think they just don't care. They fall over in the middle of public spaces, and they just crack on. And it's like they're overcoming all this kind of fear and anxiety, social anxiety. And that for me was a big like stepping stone in kind of a self-development way of like, okay, these natural ways of moving make sense to me. And then doing it like yourself, getting outside in the park and just moving around on my own, having fun, playing whilst having a workout, it just kind of like ticks all the boxes. So yeah.
Absolutely, man. Okay, so I love what you said there. I'm going to touch on two of those points. Number one was that you talked about travel and about getting into yoga while you're traveling, and that was a big one for me too, because I've done a lot of traveling over the last like 5 years or so, and I knew that, like, I took my first trip out of the country, and I just knew, okay, like I want to go travel a bunch, and I was like, what am I going to do? Like drop into gyms everywhere while I'm traveling? Like that's, it's not realistic. So like, how can I still like train my body to be strong and like move well and be flexible, without needing anything? And like, that was so empowering to discover, that you can do that, like, the gym is really not necessary at all. It can be a good tool if you want to use that, but like athleticism is not really made in the gym, I wouldn't say. And then that leads into parkour. Like I've actually been getting into parkour over the last year or so, and it's the ultimate, man. Like, go out and explore your environment, and like the and just like yesterday I was doing some parkour at the university here, University of Texas, and it was like, that becomes your gym, and there's so many different like ways to look at things and changes your perspective. And then the fear component, right? Like a lot of these things I'm more than capable of doing, but it's up here that needs to like release before I can do it. And there's so much value in that.
Yeah. And it kind of allows people to take control of their own, it's empowering people, isn't it, really? Because they're kind of, it's all self-led. You know, you can follow along,
Yeah.
but then you're empowering people to kind of move what feels good and what you kind of need, because everyone is so different. And I think on one of your last posts on Instagram, I know you kind of, you dip in and out of it and you use it like probably in a mindful way. I mean, you might disagree, you know better than me, but your focus is, you know, it's your channel, and that is your focus on Instagram. I've only actually just recently started following you. One of your last posts, you talked about kind of that redefining of fitness, and perhaps you could touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like Instagram's such a beast, man. Like I really don't like it at all, but I imagine it is a nice way to get a positive message out. So
Yeah.
it just kind of like fluctuates. Like, do I want to post something this week? We'll see. But yeah, so the last post, I was redefining fitness and just essentially like thinking of fitness as well, really anything that we hold to be true is it only true because like a group of people think it to be true, you know? And I see that that's what's happened with fitness, you know, is like is just some people like got into like some different things of training their body, and then this just like over time became this is what fitness is. But really like that's imaginary, you know. It's only that way because we think it's that way, and we can step outside of that box, shift our perspective. And this is what's so cool about all the counterculture stuff like parkour and martial arts and even just like surfing and skateboarding. Like these people aren't thinking about sets and reps and more of this measurement based training like you mentioned. It's more just like, let's go out and do this activity today and learn from it and see what happens, right? And that's very much what I've become about in the last few years, is like just learning from everything that you do and letting that navigate your way forward. Like there has to be that constant feedback and adjustment.
Yeah. There's a couple of things I want to touch on. The first one was sets and reps. It reminded me of a book that thank you for leading me on to this. Do you know what it is? It's called A Beautiful Practice, a whole life approach to, what is it? The Human Predicament, a whole life approach to functional, to health, performance, and human predicament.
Yes. My brother recommended me that book, and it was it gives a lot.
Yeah, I didn't endeavor recommend everyone to go out and read that or listen to it. The audiobook's really good because they from chapter to chapter it changes from man to woman voice, which is quite interesting. I've not heard of audiobook like that. Yeah, Frank Ferengis is the author.
Yes.
But sets and reps, he talks about reps. Not a lot. Do your reps. You know, repetition of anything is going to lead to strengthening that muscle. But yeah, it's a really. I mean, it starts off so full on. It's like human beings, we've kind of lost the way. There's all this going on. What's happening in the world? This predicament we've got ourselves into. This disconnection from the natural world. Blah blah blah. It talks about stress. Blah blah. And then that sets the scene, and then it just goes into you need a practice.
Exactly. And that's what's beautiful about yoga is like you call it your yoga practice, right? Like when you think of people going into the gym lifting weights, nobody calls that a practice. It's like their workout or whatever, right? And like again coming back to the language, like just using the phrase "this is my practice," like this just it gives like the mind the signal that, oh, this is something that I'm, you know, just engaging in and trying to get better at all the time, you know. And that's what practice is. And that's I don't know, for me, it's a good way to spend our time here on earth, is practicing something,
Yeah,
getting better at it.
exactly. And it's that goals versus the overall mission, which, listening to a lot of stuff, I think it was probably Joe Rogan, shout out. He first talked about goals and the mission, and like, well, have an overall mission, because your goals will always change, and you'll never feel the way you feel or wanted to feel or expected to feel when you finish that goal or achieve that goal. The goalposts, they change, they move, because you're that type of person. And what's your
glass ceiling?
Yeah, glass ceiling. Absolutely. What's your relationship between your overall mission, and have you narrowed that down? Do you know what that is, I suppose? And yeah, goals, obviously it's a terminology thing again. Some people might say their goal, but they're talking about mission. But yeah, what's your relationship with that?
Yeah, I feel the exact same that you do, or that you stated that Joe Rogan talked about, is that like, I think of it as my ambition. And my ambition is always there, but my inspirations, my motivations are always changing. So it's really challenging for me to have like one mission statement, or to have like these concrete goals. But I do try to set them, I do try to honor them. But then there's the other component I like to talk about: ambition and surrender, and trying to find the balance there, right? Because when I'm too ambitious, man, like that just doesn't look good for my life, it looks much better when I can like be in a calm, comfortable place going towards that goal or that mission. But then being able to just like relax and appreciate where I am right now, and that's something new that I'm stepping into, because like the last 5 years has been all about like building strength side, and there's always been like this mission of just making strength side like what I wanted it to be. And that's, I see how that's like really pushed me forward, but in a way also distracted me from being present sometimes, and just being calm and appreciating life sometimes, so yeah, that's the balance I'm trying to strike there. I think like the mission and what you said earlier about like why, tapping into the why. I found the why to be very, very helpful for me, until it isn't. And then, this comes into like more of this like existentialist conversation of like, you keep asking why and you never really get to the end, or like a concrete why, because like you're always changing, right? Like, so you have a new why this day, a new why this day, and then suddenly you're like, oh, is it all meaningless? I don't know. It's hard to find a why today. And that's why I really like to go into the question of how, and how becomes, this beautiful practice type of philosophy of like, yo, are you just like doing the rituals of your practice and taking a lot of pride and just like really being aware of what you're doing? And they say how you do one thing is how you do everything. So trying to just take pride in my practice every day, and good things come from it.
Yeah, for sure. Back to the practice, it's as you touched on with yoga, you're not trying to really get anywhere. Which and that's a hard thing for people to kind of fathom, because that's the literal beauty of the yoga practice, because you just return and your focus is just even the start, middle, end. It's like a cyclical thing, the yoga practice and the journey of like going through a practice. And you're not trying to get anywhere. You're just trying to, in every moment, be more present, come back to the present. And it's just amazing. I want to talk about what you said. I think it's the same as one of my philosophies, and I got this from Jason Silver, who talked about discipline and surrender. And I guess it kind of is this. Well, it's a bit different. The ambition I like yours probably more, actually. I might steal that. But for me, I'm trying to, not trying, I am discipline and I am surrender. And those two things, and just finding when the right time to do one or the other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Like back to language. You are both, and there's a time and a place for both of them. And I think that's a really healthy way to think
Yeah.
of it. I'm gonna steal that from you.
We can change for a while, see how it works. Yeah, just navigating the terrain between those two things. It's knowing when to do the work and knowing when to just let go and just put it out there. I've just remembered, what I was going to say about building the channel so much. Does it ever feel quite limiting in terms of, well, I've grown so much here, and it's almost, it is one thing. I don't think you are limiting yourself by any means, because you can go in many directions with it. But do you ever feel that if you went this way, it would turn into something else, and you want to keep it on track of like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. There's like, it was my goal for so long to just grow. And now that we've had a lot of growth, it's like so many more questions arise. It was almost simpler back then when it was just like, yeah, let's just put out good content and try to grow. Now it's like, oh, where do we go with this? And like, yeah, it's, I'd say like one of the things I go through a lot now is right on point with what you said, of just like really trying to get clear on like, what do I want to present through this platform? And I want it to be in alignment with what I'm interested in and like what I feel somewhat passionately about. But I also don't want to just like turn it into something that nobody else is interested in, like you got to walk that tightrope a little bit. And it's happening. Like we are navigating that nicely. And I wouldn't say I feel limited. I do feel like a lot of empowerment in that, like we have a very nice platform to share on with a really cool community of people that like want to just grow and transform and use their practice to make their lives better. So, with that, like, opportunity is endless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it's just tuning back into the process again, isn't it? And
Yes.
And knowing it all is process. It's just process. And then after the process is more process. Because
Yeah.
what I mean by that is, leads me on to probably my next kind of question. Do you feel like you're growing and sharing, or sharing and growing? I mean, they're not synonymous, but in terms of your self-development, yourself and your brothers, because he's part of the channel as well, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like as you grow, the channel grows? I'm sure you've got that before.
Yeah.
But, or like the channel's kind of teaching you things, or like the way you're doing your practice, you're noticing things and thinking, because it's a very interesting thing, isn't it? Like just reflecting on like content that is physical, and you're like an act. It's kind of like similar to, I don't want to compare to any actors out there. Scratch that. I'll take that out. But like, it's like okay. Oh, I can see myself watching. Do you ever watch videos back? I suppose, and reflect on that and feel like, okay, I see myself perhaps not being as genuine there, or any kind of like cues you get back at yourself.
Absolutely. Like I look back at old videos, and I see just not really like ingenuine, but or not inauthentic, but just someone who just isn't that comfortable in their body, and not that like not feeling super powerful. And how that comes off is like just wanting it, like wanting validation from people tell me that, oh, like you're doing well, you're doing good. So I see that, and then I see where I am now, and I'm like, oh, I'm way better now. But then I imagine in the future, I'll look at myself now and be like, oh, what was he doing? So, like you said, the process
I
continues.
think that's a good thing. I think that's a great thing, because if you're always looking
Yeah.
back and thinking, God, like, you know, the person I was then, he didn't know anything, and you're not, you're like,
Yeah.
I'm so much more, grounded now, or like, that was me being way immature and like in my kind of ego. And if we're always doing that, then great. That means we've grown. That means we've evolved. That means we're in a good place. It's a
Healthy perspective.
it's
Yeah.
a sign of growth, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, and then yeah, to like your point about the channel, um, I so actor. I don't compare myself to an actor at all, but I like when I started taking this more artistic
Hmm.
approach to my videos and like thinking of myself as a creative and like how can I do something that, I mean, there's nothing new under the sun, but the way that we can put it together can be new, and that's when I just started to take like a different approach to videos. I would drop in like some philosophy while I'm teaching, uh movements, stretching, whatever, and just like doing things, um yeah, trying to shift the perspective and do something that's just like different in that can engage people differently, right? And I think that can be really interesting if something is a bit different of how we usually see the norm, and people tended to resonate with that. And that was I mean, it's a lot of fun for me to like feel like, oh, like this is a work of art that I'm putting together here. um yeah, yeah. So that part of creation is I'm very into, and I enjoy immensely.
Yeah, I think it definitely shows, and it's being creative, it's being artistic, and it's being I suppose it's an auteur. It's someone who's really got their own stamp on something, and you find out who
Mm.
you are within that. I suppose it's like mini documentaries all the time. It is, and that's why it's appealing, and it needs to look sexy as well. It's like, you know, it needs to feel like it's, I guess it's like pleasing. It's kind of like funny terrain I'm walking on here, but it's like,
Yep.
if it looks kind of, I don't know if the lighting's right. I mean, there's a reason we gravitate towards, you know, um, good film, good content, because
Yeah.
they're doing
Aesthetics.
aesthetics, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's huge. It's
mhm.
huge. Like just the whole, like everything has to go together, right? Like and that's what's really cool about video is you can create like a feeling within people, or um by like the way that you put these together, the picture, the music, the audio, like
Yeah.
what's being said, how it's being said. It's a lot. It's very fun.
Yeah, it definitely invokes, and it's powerful, and it touches people, and your voiceovers, like the narration, it's like the, and it's the tonality of your voice. I'm getting into like new pathways in my brain. I'm like tackling things that I've like not tapped into in a while, and it's just valuable. It really is. And it leads.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, go.
Or sorry to cut you off. I'll
Right?
tell you a funny story
Cool.
about that. So one of I've never actually told this to anyone besides like my girlfriend and my brother. But one of my mentors, his name is Mike Bledsoe, and he is in like the business space and in health and wellness as well. But anyways, he used to be the host of this big podcast called Barbell Shrugged. I listened to it a lot, and I really liked his voice. And I was like, man, this guy just talks like cool. Like I just I like listening to him talk. So I started to like talk like him. Like literally, like I would just change my voice more to sound like him. And then when I started doing voiceovers for videos, I like really leaned into that voice, and I was like, I'm just gonna talk like the way that you know, it kind of turned into like not his voice anymore, but just like how I really wanted to sound. And yeah, that, I don't know, it was a funny experience, but also like an interesting like perspective of like you could change however you present
Yeah,
yourself at
I
any
think
different time.
I think you're just exposing your humanity there and being honest with it, because we all do it. We all, you know, whoever we surround ourselves with, we turn into those people. And if you're not aware of that, then perhaps have a little think, because accents, for example, like who you go to another country, pick up an accent. It's like we are literally like surrounding ourselves with life, and it is affecting us as much as we're affecting it.
Mm. That yeah, it's on the head right there, right? And that's why you got to be careful about who you're surrounding yourself with, what you're surrounding yourself with. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's a perfect day for you? If there is one, what's your ideal day?
Man, well, I'll just keep it simple. Ideal day is when I get to wake up with the sunrise, um, and have some time to myself to do whatever internal practices I want to do, and read something. Um, Probably have a nice cup of coffee, and then get to go move. Get to go explore some some movement. I would say play would be probably there in my perfect day. Something that's a little less structured, um, and followed by some good company and some good food.
Yeah, nice. I remember listening to you talk about you were training like 5 hours a day at one point. And I love that
Yeah.
because you were playing and you're naturally moving around. But like to find where your center is, I suppose you were exploring the boundaries of where you can go.
Great point. Yeah, great point. And that yeah, I mean, anything in my practice is always teaching me something, and that did definitely like push me to my limits. It also showed me a lot of like what I don't want, which is like living in a lot more sympathetic nervous system for like a long portion of the day, and just always feeling like a level of fatigue, but thinking that it was necessary to like obtain something, you know. Um, so yeah, it taught me a lot, and now it's like you said, I flirted with that edge, and now I get to come back to center and take a lot more healthy approach to my movement.
Yeah, I think one of the things you've kind of taught me or brought about was that just a short meditation after you work out or work in or whatever you want to call it is so fundamental. And you just talked about the stress response and how kind of fundamentally key that is for a lot of people now that don't necessarily create space. They don't, you know, through meditation, which we can talk about, like, which is if you're not meditating, I think that is one of the most the literally top thing you can do in your modern day if you're doing a lot of things, if you're busy, you have to be meditating. It's just a non-negotiable, isn't it? Just to create some space and some distance, and whatever meditation looks like for you, as long as you're being in the moment and being present and not you know, thinking about the past or the future, or just, you know, constantly doing. So yeah, just having that respite after you work out is just key for me. It's like you do it with yoga. You have your shavasana, whatever you want to call that, dead corpse pose or whatever. You're essentially just integrating and allowing your body to be like, right, I just stress my body in a good way. But never, you know, nonetheless, it was stressed. Now I'm just going to integrate, rejuvenate slightly, and dropping into a meditation after, you know, key for me.
Yeah, me too. And yeah, so my coach that I work with, his name is Will Brown, and he's actually based in London.
Yeah, I know him.
So yeah, okay. Do you know him personally?
Not personally, but I've followed him
Okay.
for a while though.
Cool. You should link up with him. He's such a great guy. And I remember like one phase of our programming, he wrote like in the program, like after my session, to just lay down under a tree and just like stare up at the tree and let whatever comes up, like daydream or drift off or whatever. And like, and I remember doing that and just like feeling so, just like so good and so relaxed. And it's just like the perfect way to come down after after any type of exercise session. And most of us don't do that, like we get all amped up and then we go straight into something else, and you're carrying that sympathetic tone, that like stimulated state with you. And if you're not conscious of it, like you won't bring yourself down. And yeah, it's definitely an issue, right? Like I don't think, or I know that people don't quite have like the information or the education on how to control the state that you're in, period, just to control it, right? Like you do cold exposure, like you do meditation, you know how important it is to be able to like tap into different states of being. And I think like even beyond like a movement practice or anything, I think this is the number one thing that we all need to be aware of and to learn how to do for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I always I couldn't help myself but think those people when they leave the yoga studio directly at the end and don't allow a few minutes. It was mainly after Bikram actually, because Bikram is a really intentional practice. And then the teacher would, I've been signed up. So the teacher would, even like that, you could hear it in their voice. It was like, please stay for the 5 minutes. This is so fundamental to the practice.
Yeah.
And then at least one person would just get up and go. And I'd be like, where are they going? Why is it always that same person? I don't know. Maybe they're, maybe they're.
Where are we ever going? Like.
Yeah. Where are we ever going?
Just sit down, lay down, do the 5 minutes. It's always going to be better for you.
Yeah. So what does your meditation practice look like or feel like? Or
yeah, I mean, I've done different things over the years. Right now, I usually like to sit down and start with some intentional breath, sometimes like upregulating the system, more of like a Wim Hof type breath for a round, 2 rounds, just to kind of like settle into my body, feel into my body. And then nowadays I usually just sit for 15 to 20 minutes and focus on my breath and focus on just like I said, really trying to feel everything, right? Getting out of just this space and coming down here.
Yeah.
How about for you? What is your meditation practice?
It comes and goes. As I say, preaching about how fundamental it is. My humanity will show. And
sure.
Yeah, of course. I live within the seasons. It's all embrace the change, and it's never a constant. Just like happiness, it's transitory. So I think mine now is it's intentional breath. I did Vipassana. That shaped my meditation practice actually. My Vipassana, which I did 2 years ago, my 30th birthday, just before, and it was phenomenal. I just tapped into some amazing heightened states of, whatever you want to call it, but my kind of my senses grew, it felt like, and the Vipassana meditation, which they talk about, is the kind of the real genuine teachings of the Buddha. It's it's a scanning of the body, and there's different stages you kind of get as your concentration, your focus grows, but it's a scanning of the body from head to toe, and you feel whatever you feel presently, whether that's the cold air, whether that's a sensation, an itch, and you just observe, and you just let whatever is. But it depends. If I haven't intentionally done this for a couple of days, a week perhaps, and it will start very basic, and you have to build up, because there's no point in trying to do like a whole body scan of like your awareness, or trying too hard. You've just got to let whatever comes up, I guess. But it's breath work. It's concentrating on the breath, and it's just being aware and just observing. And either your thoughts are an amazing thing to just observe and just step away from. It's like, wow, that's where my head's going. That's what's happening now. And do I need to write this down? Like, am I going to forget this? And you just allow, and it's just right. That's not important. It's not important. What I'm doing right now is the most important. Yeah. So it kind of looks something like that, I
guess. I love that, man. Yeah, that's that's what it's all about. Just being with what is right now. And that's the practice in taking it outside of your meditation as well, right? And allowing yourself to just be. And that's why meditation is such a good tool, because it helps you expand that consciousness in everyday life as well. So, but I totally relate, man. Like, I fall off the wagon sometimes. Sometimes I'll just pop some headphones in and do like a 10-minute guided meditation. And that, it's just something. It's easy, and it's helpful.
Yeah, there's some amazing like breathwork meditation groups out there to just have some accountability, which I'm actually leaning into more, even though I'm quite passionate and focused as a self-employed, personal lifestyle kind of avenue, I guess. I'm still feeling, and I think I listened to your podcast which is amazing. If anyone wants to further dive into you and what's relevant, who was it who had you on? It was the student. It wasn't too long ago.
Student of the game.
Student of the game.
Okay.
Yeah. He had you on, and you've got like a 2-hour conversation on there, and and you talked about mentors and that kind of coach aspect of just every coach needs a coach, which kind of hit home. And I was like, yeah, I just need someone to check in with. I need someone to bounce ideas off. I need someone to be accountable for, even if like they know less than me, like whether that's relevant or not, it doesn't matter. It's the someone that you just can have there. And the best coach is the person that, well, I find anyway, the best coach is the person that doesn't say too much. They're just kind of like, are you sure? Yeah. Why?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like for my coach Will, and then my mentor Mike, like I think I've gathered more from them by just being in their presence and just like watching them closely, and like studying them, rather than like them actually telling me some piece of wisdom that's gonna like change my life. It's just like getting yourself around people that are doing things that you want to do, that have some things figured out that you would like to figure out. Like nothing's more powerful than that. And also just like having someone else have your back. Like I don't think that we realize how important that is. Like when there's not just you, like for your whole life, you've been trying to figure it out. And now you get this other person that comes in and is like, hey, I'm going to assist you in figuring this out. And yeah, man, that's like, I could never go back to not having some type of guidance in my life.
Yeah. And I've been thinking a fair bit lately about how easy it is for me to do someone else's work. Yet when it comes to myself, I find it harder. Yet it's the same kind of area of work. And I'm like, well, why is that? Like, am I in my own way? Like, what is preventing me from being as actionable, or, as fluid with it as me doing it for someone
What do
else.
what do you mean by someone else's work? Like working for
Yeah,
someone
I guess
else?
like say someone's got a
Yeah.
project on, or they want me
Yeah.
to produce some content for them, or whatever that might be. Say if
Hmm.
you've got similar things going on, it's often easier, I find, for you to do it for someone else than it is for you to do for yourself.
Mm.
Just from the mind that overthinks about everything, that always is right, and it kind
Mm.
of reveals where you're not free, I guess. When you
Mm.
go to put something out, or it's not perfect, you kind of want your best version of yourself to be visible to the world. I'm sure you
Yes.
can relate.
Yes. Yeah, and that's exactly what it sounded like to me when you said that. Was like, oh, like you'd rather do it for someone else because like doing it for you, you're like, yo, okay, like I got to have this really, really perfect. And whenever anything has to be really, really perfect, it's always easier to say like, well, like I'll be a little bit more prepared to make that thing perfect in a week or in a month, or like I tend to do that. Um, there'll be like a video idea that I have, but I'm like, okay, like that's gonna be a really, really cool video, and I think it'll be better if I do it like in 2 months. And then I just kind of like slap myself, like, what's gonna change in 2 months? Just do it now. You have the idea now. It's fresh now.
Yeah.
Like, just do the thing, put it out there. Um, I talk to a lot of different like creators, people starting their YouTube channels and stuff, and I was just telling them like, number one is just start, just start putting the stuff out. It doesn't matter if it's shitty. It should be shitty in the beginning, because it gives you like a lot of space to grow and to figure things out.
Yeah, it will what's the word, it when something's shilly, it kind of humbles you.
Mm,
It's like,
yeah.
it does. Trying
Absolutely.
not to have anything perfect around the house, or like there'll be something that is a project, or like something that shelf needs sorting, or I'll kind of like make sure I've got at least one of those things going on to keep me humble.
Yeah, right.
If you
I
can
like
kind of
that.
get that. I heard it
Yeah.
from, I think Jamie Foxx talked about it, even in his, with all his money. He was just like, I like one thing around the house that I know is there to just keep me in my place, or some psychological trick. Anyway, it seems to work.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's great. I think that's great. Yeah. And that is like a phrase I like to say a lot to myself is like, don't believe your own hype, and just to like really, talking about humbling yourself, like just to be like, oh yeah, like I'm just this dude that's trying to figure stuff out, and I'm just in the process, and like that's beautiful. That's all we can do.
Hmm. Yeah, nice. So what's going on for you now? Like, what you're most excited about?
Mm. Well, I've been traveling for the last like on and off for the last 3 years, and not having a home base for a while, and like just moved into a place in this empty house here. So I'm really excited to see what comes out of just like being in my own space, feeling more grounded. We've been here for like 2 weeks now, and just like being able to just really dial into my routines, really dial in like what I'm eating every day and stuff like that has just made me feel so healthy, which in turn makes me feel more present, more aware, and it makes like everything more fun. So yeah, really excited about that. In terms of strength side, um, I just started like putting out a string of videos, more so doing this, just like talking, taking some questions and then talking about a topic or a question. And yeah, that's exciting me at the moment, because, when you do fitness stuff, it's like you get to a point where it's like, okay, like it's going to be the same thing, just repackaged in a different way, and to be able to like just talk more philosophically. And, you know, that was like the podcast. When I did the YouTube podcast series, that was like my way of putting out some of my personal philosophies and stuff. But that was like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years now. So things change, and now it's time to kind of talk again. So I'm having fun with that.
Yeah, nice. I definitely think it's valuable having, and of course there's perks of living kind of out of a, not saying you were, but out of a bag. Like I traveled for a fair amount of time, not having a base.
Yeah.
Not having a base.
Yep.
And that taught me so much. I mean, it taught me who I am. Like it really did.
Yep.
Stripped back all the conditions, all the person I thought I'd need to be around friends. I just think that's one of the most valuable things of traveling. You're not trying to impress anyone anymore. You kind of have to be yourself, because people just see right through you because they don't know you.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely having a base, which I've found now, having a base for the last 2 years, you can kind of get a good routine or a good foundation, and then kind of add things in and take them away slightly to know how they really impact you. And I think that's really key. And in any kind of, you know, growth, I suppose, in terms of it could be just be your physical and what you're eating and nutrition, etc., what works for you, I guess, a little bit more. I've definitely found that. Yeah,
same. And same with travel for me. Like, man, it's just really changed who I am as a person. Like like it shaped my whole philosophy on life. And yeah, now getting more settled. Like, I really love what you said there about, you know, when you're traveling, there's so much stimulus. Like, there's so much new stimulus that you don't really know like everything that's affecting you. But when you're in more of this closed environment or controlled environment, like you can, like you said, just like, all right, I'm going to add this in for a week. Okay, how did this feel? Type of thing. Like, I love that as well. Right. So it's cool. We've kind of done the same thing and had the same experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a blank canvas. It looks that from the background.
Totally. We're actually leaving this room open to like do some movement and
nice.
to be able to film some stuff for videos and whatnot. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, nice. If there was one thing, I love this question. So if there was one thing that you could make everybody do, or they would listen to you and implement it, you know, to frame it a bit better, they would implement it, and it was just one thing that's kind of like a must. What would you say that is? You know, some people say drink water, make sure you're drinking water, or make sure you're getting enough sleep, or like some kind of health, you know, on the kind of, you know, in health. What would you say that kind of is?
Okay, I'd like to give you two. One's a bit more of like the mental emotional side of health, and that would be to every morning write down how you're feeling.
Nice.
And you could start with just a sentence or two, and then if it feels like building and you want to write more, then write more. Like, simply putting down into words what your experience is like, what's going on for you, how you're feeling. You learn so much about yourself, and sometimes you'll let things come up that you would have just kept down, right? Very, very powerful for me is just the act of journaling over the past few years. Now, for more of like a physical aspect of health, I would say to sit on the ground, interact with the ground more. Whether you're working from home or whether you're, you know, with your kids watching TV or whatever it is, just use the ground more. And like, there's so many different positions you can do on the ground. You can just sit regularly. We can be here. Like it just gives us so much natural mobility, like a way to use all these ranges of motion that we naturally have. But the chair has just led us to lose so much of it. So it's a big part of like what we teach in our primal athlete program is like, hey, if you use it more, you won't have to necessarily stretch as much. It's kind of like you're talking about, like the modern day lifestyle. Because we're so busy, meditation is necessary. If we weren't so busy, then your life could just be a meditation. You could just be very present and aware all the time. Same goes for your hips and your spine and your shoulders. Is like the more that you just cram yourself in a seat all day, the more you're going to have to go spend an hour stretching it all out. If you can find ways to not be crammed in a seat all day, you won't have to necessarily go reverse anything.
Yeah, amazing. I love all that.
Thanks, man.
It's so key, isn't it? Going back to the yoga, I remember kind of having this moment and realizing, well, why is yoga so, like, why are people getting so injured? Like, what is this? This is like ancient, like old practice. Like, and you warm up, you cool down, but it's like, why are people having so many problems? Because we don't have a relationship with the ground, and we've got no ankle mobility, no kind of hips and leg strength. And it's like, wow, I go from the office to the yoga studio, back to the home, to the chair, to the bed, to the car, to the
right,
and you
right.
just don't have a relationship with the ground. And I would 100% concur that is without a doubt one of the biggest ways anyone can really improve and enhance their life and their well-being. Because as you know, once you start to move your body in range of motion, opening up your hips, that's your body opening up, right? And then your mind just seems to follow. And it just makes you into a better person, just like doing something that's so natural, sitting on the ground. We do have a sofa in our living room, but it's for relatives. And I'm like, no, we need to teach them. We need to give them a better chance. And it's a heated conversation. But yeah,
that's really funny. Yeah, I mean, like we actually just ordered a sofa as well, and I think if you're intentional about what you're doing all day long, then like you could relax on the couch for a little bit at night, spend like half an hour there. But it's like when that becomes your norm, when you're like sitting on the couch, like doing work all day long, then like get rid of the couch, right? So, oh man, just everything has to be intentional. And I love what you said there about you make one little change like this, implementing this in your life, your body opens up, you start like feeling differently, you start thinking a bit differently, it changes everything, right? And that's what we see so much from people that we get to talk to, like from engaging with strength side, is just like it's always one little thing. Like maybe you take up breath work, maybe take up meditation, maybe you start doing this stretching routine, and it just has a snowball effect of affecting your life in all these different positive ways that you didn't really see before.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Amazing. Yeah, we'll wrap it up. Is there any, you want to point anyone to anything, or just, I mean, I'll put links up, but yeah.
Pretty much just search Strength Side on YouTube if you'd like to become more familiar with us. And I usually just shoot people to the YouTube and say, watch a couple of videos. If it resonates with you, then we have a lot that you could dive into. So yeah, just check us out there.
And what is your program? Is it a membership monthly thing, or do you do courses? Is that the program you do? Because if you got one in March, or someone starting soon, I don't know. What's the?
Yeah, we have a few different ways to dive into to our offerings. And we have like lower things where you can just become a member, get access to stretching routines and strength routines. And then we go all the way up through our Primal Athlete program, which is when we take a small group of people, 6 to 8 people, and we do kind of an intensive with them for 12 weeks. And we train like handstands, and we train the gymnastics rings, and we do a bunch of like primal animal movement and stuff. And then we also do some of this mind framework at the same time, with just introducing things like breath work, things like journaling and whatnot. So it's I like to call it like, it's like a training camp for your mind and your body.
Mm-hmm.
For
Yeah,
body, mind, practice.
Do you know what? That's where I should have said it earlier. That's where it came from. That's where the brand, I guess, came from. The book, The Beautiful Practice. The practice aspect. Yeah,
love that.
I was going to be like approach, or mind body approach, or body mind approach, and you got to roll with what's free, right?
True. Yeah.
There's a lot taken.
I think I love it with the practice. It sounds great.
Yeah. Nice. Amazing. Yeah. I think one of your videos, the squat tutorial, the squat progressions, is one of the most valuable. I think it is for me, still is for me. I still can't fully flat squat, and I know now for certain, even though I don't remember, it was my right ankle has got some kind of cartilage or tissue damage there, and I don't even know when it was from. It's like until I started looking at it and then practicing and thinking, why am I not getting too far? I'm like I'm squatting, elevated squatting every day. I've been doing it for over a year, and I'm like, man, it's just such a, I mean, what you don't use, you lose. And that is like the statement everyone needs to kind of keep thinking about. Well, I'm not using, I'm losing. And no, and when it comes to the body, it's just completely right. But the squat tutorial is just brilliant.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah. And that's one of the most important things, because like the squat is such a it's just such a well-balanced tool for your lower body flexibility. Like you don't need to do the splits. Like, you don't need these like excess ranges of motion, but you do need to be able to just sit in a deep body weight squat, because it represents that good ankles, knees, hips, spine, all that good stuff. And I was in the same boat as you for quite some time. My ankles were pretty messed up after playing basketball. I rolled them a lot, and the ankles are stubborn. They take some time to, I imagine, because we're walking all the time, we're on our feet all the time, so those tissues can get really, really knotted up, and it takes some time, but it's well worth it. Yeah, no doubt that you'll get there sooner than later.
Yeah. And just to kind of conclude the squat, Aaron Alexander talks about it all the time, and that a lot of cultures that have not a sedentary lifestyle, and they use the squat, full range of motion from the ground to standing, they have a lot lower, is it rheumatoid arthritis cases and things like that. And one of the most fundamental things that actually happens to old people in terms of what tips them to the point of going in a care home is their ability to I think it's sitting in and standing up, but I think it's not going to the bathroom. It's something to do with not being able to go to the bathroom by themselves. That's what takes them eventually to the care home. And it's generally because they've got limited mobility in their hips, and they've kind of limited that movement from sitting a lot. It's happened to my grandparents. Just take my grandparents for kind of like, for instance, that they both spent most of their time at the end of their lives in chairs, and they just didn't use the mobility that they could have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, it comes back to like the ground, right? Like just basics, like sitting on the ground, standing up from the ground. That's going to like promote so much longevity for you in a higher quality of life, right? That's going to naturally maintain the range of motion and that joint health. And you know, we're two young dudes talking about this, but I imagine that we're going to be set up to feel pretty good when we're older. So,
Well, yeah, that is actually one of the the main reasons, kind of thinking about it in a conscious way. Like, I'm going to spend 30 years of my life as an OAP, as we call it, or like, I don't know, an older person. I don't want that time of my life to be. And people have concentrated on using the kind of money aspect. Oh, I want to save now so I have a better life when you're older. Well, what
right.
about having all that money and then not being able to really enjoy using that money because you have limited, movement? Like,
Yeah.
surely the movement comes first. If I'm poor and I move well when I'm older, I'm going to be loving life.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and like I don't want to have to stop doing the activities that I love doing, like just because I turned 50, like
Mhm.
I lived in Santa Cruz, California for a while, and I used to see surfers out there just like shredding it up on these waves, and then they'd like paddle in as like a 60-year-old dude or something, and I'm like, that's really awesome, and I want that to be my life as I get older, and that's what a lot of this is about, like you said. And
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of cool practices like surfing, like doing like a handstand that you can do that aren't so jarring on your body, and you can do into old age. And that's something that I've started to think about, is like these, beautiful practices, these lifelong practices that you can keep doing and keep having fun with, right? I might not be able to do a backflip when I'm 60, but I think I'll be able to stand on my hands for a little bit, so that should be cool.
And you might do it at parties and celebrations, but maybe just
Yeah.
don't do it all the time. You just save it.
Right.
Save it for special occasions when you're
Yeah.
60. But yeah, and there's no reason you can't. I mean, you looked at lots of the natural people of the world that are still living that natural template for humans. And like, I lived in Cambodia for 6 months, and
Wow.
there, when I was traveling for Southeast Asia, kind of lived on this farm in the outskirts, rural area, and we volunteered on this school, at the school. And the Westerners who stayed kind of at their house, the local village house, we stayed in the same room as the grandparents. The grandparents were 70, pushing on 80. I don't even know how old, but they were not young, and they'd sleep on the floor, on the wooden floorboards.
Wow.
Uh, and it was just that they just, they'd lie around most of the day because, they're not young and it's hot. But the way they moved and the relationship they had with the floor was just like boom, straight up, boom, straight down. It's like, it's just
Yeah.
so inspiring. And it's like, well, yeah, they're humans, we don't, I mentioned this on another podcast, that we've got these road signs that have like, and it's come to someone's attention. Someone tagged me in it on Instagram a couple of weeks ago, and I posted it. But it's like the discrimination that, or the social norms, that things we accept about these road signs that are triangles and say elderly people, like caution, elderly people crossing near a care home, and they're all
Sure.
hunched over in these signs, like with walking sticks. And I'm like, no, it doesn't have to be.
Right. More yeah, it's like more symbolism, more language that we're using to like make us believe this thing that isn't necessarily truth.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like the pursuit of reframing that. I think
Mhm.
that's what we're doing.
Yeah, nice. Amazing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Oh, actually, finally, I will say, if you're not tight on time, it's going to be interesting in kind of like through our life, we've seen the kind of rise of social media, of Instagram, of YouTube. It's going to be really interesting to look at your channel and see what's going on in 30, 40 years. And see what you're doing, and which we can do now.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like following people like Joe Rogan and seeing what's he gonna be like as an 80-year-old, like, and almost
Yeah.
knowing him, probably, if you're an avid fan, better than probably he knows himself. But like having this kind of catalog of like this person you've listened to for so long, and just like seeing never met them. I don't know, it's fascinating. It's fascinating to see where it's going.
It is. It's really fascinating, right? And it's like it's just a bit of a mind trip to think about,
I
like
love it.
like YouTube in 30 years, like what's that going to look like? Like there's going to be so much stuff on YouTube. Will it still be running YouTube?
Yeah.
Will we have moved on to something else? Who knows? But yeah, there are going to be just like these archives of people like you and me, like growing up and on camera and seeing the evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, man. Anything else you wanna touch on?
No, I'm about to go. I'm about to go move a little bit, and if you're listening to this, you should too.
Yeah, you should follow. Put on
Yep.
some YouTube and type in strength side.
There we go.
All right, man.
Thanks, man.
Very much.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. This is great.
Yeah, awesome. Appreciate it, mate.
Cool.